The champagne flutes rang together, their clear notes cutting through the restaurant hum just as Olivia's voice rose above it all, sharp and deliberate. "Look at her," she announced, making sure every ear nearby caught it. 2 jobs, no car, no place of her own, crashing on library benches like some vagabond. She smirked, her manicured nails drumming the rim of her glass. Maybe those benches should start charging her rent. Laughter broke out around the table, bracelets glittering as my cousins lifted their glasses in a cruel mock toast. Heat shot up my neck as heads turned from other tables. Strangers' eyes flicked toward me, uncomfortable witnesses to a family stripping one of their own bare. The birthday dinner I'd scraped tips together to attend wasn't a celebration. It was a setup. "My name is Lauren, I'm 22, and I've been clawing my way through life with back-to-back shifts at a diner and bookstore, just to make it. That night, I discovered revenge doesn't always roar like fire. Sometimes it waits quietly in ink, in signatures. I gripped my water so tightly my fingers ached, words burning my throat, but refusing to come out. These weren't just relatives, they were the exalted children of the family. The ones who never knew debt collectors or secondhand shoes. Their tuition bills evaporated into thin air. Their apartments and cars appeared like magic on birthdays. Olivia leaned closer, her diamond earrings catching the light. "But really, Lauren, how do you keep yourself clean? Sponge baths in public sinks? Shelter showers?" Her voice oozed mock sympathy, eyes bright with triumph. I opened my mouth to answer, but then I froze. Just beyond her, through the restaurant's glass, stood my Uncle Robert. He wasn't watching with pity. His expression carried something heavier, something unreadable. His gaze caught mine, lingered, and then he turned and walked away. "Earth to Lauren." Olivia snapped her fingers. "She's probably half asleep from all that bench lounging." Snickers rolled down the table again. I shoved back my chair, the scrape of wood against tiles silencing even them for a second. I walked out without a word, their laughter trailing after me like smoke. The night air met me like a release, cool against my burning face. But their voices clung to me, sticky as tar. "Lauren." I turned. Uncle Robert stood against a sleek black car, half in shadow, his face unreadable in the streetlight. At family gatherings, he was the quiet one, the brother whose opinions silenced rooms. People whispered about him. Robert was the wealthy one, the dangerous one, the man you didn't provoke. "Come with me," he said, pulling open the passenger door. His tone wasn't kind, nor curious, it was simply certain. I hesitated, glancing back at the restaurant where laughter still spilled out. Ahead of me was a man I barely knew, offering something I couldn't yet name. "Tonight changes everything," he said, eyes locked on mine with unnerving steadiness. "I've been watching. Ever since your father told me what happened." I moved toward the car. Inside, the leather seat felt like a foreign world, clean, rich, hushed. Sandalwood scented the air as he pulled away from the curb, leaving behind their mockery. For blocks we drove in silence. The city smeared past in streaks of neon and shadow. I studied him from the corner of my eye, the sharp jawline, silver streaks at his temples. Then his voice came, steady as stone. "I know where you've been sleeping." My stomach plummeted. Shame burned hotter than Olivia's jabs ever had. "I've seen you dragging yourself between jobs," he continued, as though listing facts. "And I've seen them laugh at you for it." His words sat heavy in the air. And for the first time that night, I realized this wasn't pity. It was a beginning. The sting of Olivia's words still lingered, but I refused to let tears fall. "Not here. Not now." "You remind me of myself at your age," Uncle Robert said finally, his knuckles whitening against the steering wheel. "Hungry, alone, fighting while others laughed, convinced they'd already won." The car slowed before a towering skyscraper, its glass walls glittering as if they had swallowed the night. Recognition jolted me. I had heard whispers of this place for years during family conversations. It was one of Uncle Robert's most prized buildings, yet forbidden ground to everyone else. We crossed a marble lobby so polished it reflected our footsteps back at us. The elevator closed with a soft sigh, sealing us into a capsule of silence. Uncle Robert turned to me, his eyes sharp. "Lauren," he said, his voice a promise and a warning. I'm about to show you something that will change the way you see all of them forever. When the door slid open, my breath caught. The elevator led directly into a penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows stretched across the walls, unveiling the city sprawled below like a bed of stars. Every surface gleamed, marble, steel, glass, as if the entire room fed on light. Sit, he commanded, pointing to a low leather chair beside a glass-encased fire. I sank into it, my body protesting with the exhaustion I'd carried for months. The softness beneath me felt foreign, dangerous, as though it might swallow me whole. You believe they laugh because you're weak, he said, pacing with deliberate steps across the room's polished floor. But they laugh because they're terrified. Terrified of a world where the balance shifts. A bitter laugh escaped me. Afraid? They're afraid of nothing. He stopped at a sleek wall panel, slipped a key from his pocket, and slid it into a hidden lock. A section of the wall opened, revealing a concealed cabinet. From within, he pulled out a thick, leather-bound folder. Everything your cousins own, he said evenly, placing it on the table before me, comes through me. Their cars, their homes, their allowances. Every dollar, every string, runs back to this folder. He spread the documents across the table, contracts, deeds, financial records, legal agreements bearing familiar names. Olivia, Tyler, Danielle. Their pristine lives, spelled out in black ink. They mocked you tonight, Uncle Robert said, his tone turning darker. But never forget, if I wish it, they'll lose everything tomorrow. Roofs, comfort, pride. My hand brushed against a page, my cousin Olivia's signature glaring up at me from a lease. The same cousin who hours earlier had sneered about me sleeping on benches. Do you see now? He asked. I nodded, unable to speak as realization sank in. While they scorned me for my hunger and exhaustion, their comfort survived only through his hands. He poured himself a drink, the ice chiming as it met the glass. They've grown fat on entitlement. They've never struggled, never fought. But you, his gaze pinned me. You've survived storms they can't even imagine. The fire's warmth reached into me, thawing a part of myself I had forgotten. For the first time in months, I felt recognized. Not as a burden, not as a failure, but as someone who had endured. I want you, he continued, to be the one who teaches them humility. My breath faltered. What? He pushed the folder closer. Every agreement in here can be redirected. Every lease, every payment, every loan. I could do it myself, but then it's just me showing power. I want them to see you. The city's lights winked through the glass walls, silent witnesses to the choice before me. Power, revenge, justice. Each possibility inked in contracts waiting beneath my fingertips. Why me? I whispered. Uncle Robert leaned back, swirling amber liquid in his glass. Because you've already lived through their worst fear. You've lost pride, shelter, safety, and yet you did not break. That's what makes you dangerous, Lauren. That's what makes you strong. Shadows stretched long across the floor as the firelight flickered. I thought of every night curled on a bench, of aching bones after double shifts, of washing up in public restrooms while others sneered. I carried every humiliation, every hunger, every bitter morning with me. He slid a pen toward me, heavy and sharp in its simplicity. Their comfort exists because of signatures. Sign, and you become the storm they never saw coming. My hand hovered over the pen as old voices echoed in my head. Mockery. Laughter, Olivia's cruel taunt. Maybe those benches should send you a rent invoice. I picked up the pen. Slowly, deliberately. Each stroke I made across the page cut away years of silence, of endurance, of swallowing grief. When I finished, Robert gathered the folder and nodded, not with triumph, but with recognition. Tomorrow, he said, his voice carrying the weight of certainty, the family will learn who truly holds the power. The strings had shifted. Quietly, almost imperceptibly, the balance of power had slipped into my hands. You must be tired, Uncle Robert said, his voice gentler than I'd ever heard it. He led me down a hall into a guest room, where the bed looked softer than anything I had known in months. Stay here tonight. Tomorrow we begin. The night passed in restless fragments. Morning sunlight spilled through the wide penthouse windows, gilding everything in warm gold. I hadn't slept much. My mind spun endlessly with the reality of what I had done. The folder sitting on the table no longer felt like paper and ink. It was a storm waiting to break open. At breakfast, Uncle Robert slid his phone toward me. Watch. Messages began flashing across the screen one after another. Tyler, why is the dealership saying my car payments have been frozen? Call me now. Olivia. Uncle, my landlord says rent hasn't cleared. This must be a mistake. Fix it, please. Each alert struck like lightning. Their certainty fractured, their safety unraveling. They're starting to feel it, Uncle Robert murmured, sipping his coffee as though this were nothing more than a morning ritual. The ground beneath their feet is shifting. By noon, the tone of the calls changed. Desperation bled through every voicemail. The penthouse phone rang endlessly, cousins' voices pouring into the machine. Olivia's once polished confidence cracked. This isn't funny, her voice trembled. I have a dinner party tonight. Do you know how humiliating this is? Tyler's call followed, raw with anger and disbelief. You can't just cut us off. We're family. That word, family, made me laugh. When I was the one freezing at night, sleeping on benches, they hadn't cared. When I was hungry, humiliated, mocked, family hadn't mattered. But now, with their comfort stripped away, suddenly blood ties were sacred. I stood before the window, looking down at the city. For the first time in years, I wasn't gazing up at unreachable glass towers. I was above them, untouchable. The same girl who once curled on concrete for warmth now wielded power by doing nothing more than holding silence. You don't have to answer them, Uncle Robert said softly, resting a hand on my shoulder. Not yet. Let them squirm. Let them feel what you felt. My reflection in the glass startled me. Harder, sharper, a stranger who had grown from scars. And for the first time in months, I couldn't hear their laughter echoing in my head, only their fear. By evening, panic had spread like wildfire. My phone buzzed nonstop. Cousins, aunts, even distant relatives. The caterers won't deliver. The bank froze our cards. Do something. I sat on the velvet couch, staring at the folder on the table. That single signature had transformed me, from an outcast, the shame of the family, to the architect of their reckoning. When the elevator chimed, I already knew who had come. Olivia. She swept in, though less polished than usual. Her mascara smudged, hair escaping its careful style. For once, perfection had cracks. Her eyes darted around the room until they landed on me. What are you doing here? She demanded, sharp but unsteady. Where's Uncle Robert? What's going on? He's out, I said, my tone flat. She advanced quickly, heels striking against the marble. This has to stop. My electricity is about to be shut off. My credit cards won't work. People are talking. How uncomfortable for you, I replied, calm, almost detached. Her eyes narrowed, then widened as realization set in. You. She let out a brittle laugh. That's ridiculous. You're nobody. You can't. I can. I cut in, standing slowly. And I did. The air thickened. At that moment, Uncle Robert emerged silently from his office. Olivia spun toward him, clinging to hope. Thank God. Please, fix this. The country club is calling, my membership. This isn't her choice to make. But his answer was final, immovable. It was her choice, and you will live with it. The word struck Olivia harder than any punishment. She turned back to me, horror blooming in her expression. For the first time in my life, I saw it in her eyes, fear. Lauren, she tried again, her voice softer now, pleading. We're cousins. We grew up together. You can't let one mistake, one bad night, ruin everything. One bad night. I stepped closer, voice steady as stone. Do you remember what you said yesterday? You joked that benches should charge me rent. Do you remember how you all laughed when I walked away? Her lips parted, but no defense came. I learned something sleeping on those benches, I continued. My words felt quiet but sharp. That comfort is fragile. That pride is fragile. And cruelty doesn't vanish. It circles back. The silence stretched heavy between us. This wasn't about reducing them to rubble. It was about balance. about showing them their lives had never been untouchable. Uncle Robert gave the faintest nod, approval in his eyes. He had left the choice with me, and I had chosen not to destroy them fully, but to make them remember. Olivia's posture sagged. Her voice dropped to a whisper. We were wrong. I didn't respond. Some truths didn't need confirmation. Instead, I turned toward the window, watching the city lights flicker alive as night fell. For the first time in months, I felt lighter, not because I had unleashed chaos, but because I had reclaimed something they tried to take, my dignity. Behind me, Olivia's muffled sob broke the silence, and in that sound, I recognized the true shift. Not my defeat, but hers. Later that night, after Olivia left with promises to spread the message, Uncle Robert handed me a set of keys. The apartment on the 32nd floor is yours now, he said. You'll never sleep on a bench again. In the weeks that followed, I settled into my new home. With Uncle Robert's connections, I found better work. My cousins, humbled, subdued, kept their distance. They never mocked me again. The balance had shifted, and this time it was mine to hold.